YouTube, what's new? Not a lot, honestly. I do want to say before I get into this video, for everybody who has responded to my last video, whether it be through private message or actually on the video, thank you so much. For my friends who responded, it means the world to me that y'all responded. For the people who aren't my friends and who I don't know and who have similar experiences, my heart goes out to you. Don't really know how else to respond because I'm really bad at that. Anyways, thank you for that positive response because that video was really hard to film. So, moving on to this video though, because hinted at it in my last video. This is the first time I'm like following through on something like immediately. So, my obsession with Billy Elliot has returned. And when I say has returned, I've never like forgotten about it because I love Billy Elliot, but like it's returned to the levels that it was when I was in high school. And let me prove what levels it was when I was in high school. So this poster, hopefully y'all can see it. You can see my orange face, my like blondish brown hair. Markers were limited, okay guys? And you're like, what is this? You can even see it, you're like, what is this? So my at my high school, the seniors who were on varsity athletic teams got to make caricature posters of themselves, and you got to fill it with all your interests and stuff. So if you saw that, you could see some of my interests in high school. Most of them are still the same because I'm boring. But in this top corner, I've got a little Billy Elliot poster, okay? Because we're putting it to the side. I loved Billy Elliot. I never got to see it because when it toured, we couldn't really afford it, but I listened to the music. I know the story because I looked up the plot synopsis online like you do, and I just really liked it. I liked that it was based in dance because I love dance. So I was obsessed with Billy Elliot to the point where I put it on my senior year poster that because I was on the drill team, it hung all year long because they didn't take them down. They like kept them up. So everybody got to see this all year long. So yeah, love Billy Elliot. I love the story. I love the music. And I wanted to go see it so bad, but like I said, we couldn't afford it. So I was just like living through what tiny morsel of YouTube videos I could find, because back then YouTube wasn't like it is now. So yeah, because it came to America in like 2009, I believe. I was like a sophomore in high school, so yeah, my love for that musical extended beyond sophomore year, clearly. So I've got my trusty laptop here plugged in because I live dangerously. It's at like 2%. And we're going to go through my notes because if you saw my cats video, you're going to know this video is probably going to be pretty similar in that I'm going to compare the movie from 2000 with, I want to say his name is Jamie Bell, I could be wrong, but I'm going to call him that throughout the video. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. And I'm going to compare the musical. I'd like to say first, the musical came after the movie. So yeah. So let's start with why I love Billy Elliot. I love dance. I love stories revolving around dance. I love watching dance movies. I love watching things that are based in dance and have like a basis in dance. I love seeing that on stage. Like, I just love that kind of stuff. And so to see the story of a boy struggling and learning to dance and then going on and being an amazing ballerina, amazing. Like, hits me hard. I love it. The story encompasses a lot of things. Billy Elliot's home life, and the miners' strike, which I know a thing or two about strikes. Newsies is my favorite musical. That's a video coming because there's a movie version of Newsies too, and you might be surprised at which one's my favorite. So yeah, I love this musical so much. It encompasses a lot of what I like. And the movie, in fact, encompasses my favorite ballet. And I don't just mean Swan Lake. I mean, Matthew Bourne's Swan Lake. If you've never seen it, you can find it online. It is absolutely amazing. The one I watched had Dominic North in it, and he played the prince, and one of the original Billies was actually playing the prince, one of the princes most recently, because they had three. His name is Liam Mower. But anyways, I watched it originally with Dominic North as the prince, and he as the prince has been solidified in my mind, like, and it's just a gorgeous story, which I'll talk about it a little bit later, because the story isn't actually the swan's story in Matthew Bourne's Swan Lake. It's the prince's story, which typically it's flipped. It's usually the swan's story, but in this it's not. So yeah, I'll talk about that a little bit later, because there is a bit of irony with the movie. So yeah, let's talk about the basics of the plot and the movie and the musical. So the movie is about an hour and 15 minutes long. The musical is about 3 hours long, and that's mainly because of the songs. They are almost identical plot-wise. There's like very little that is changed, with the exception of added songs and a few added jokes. So the basic plot is we are introduced to Durham in the middle of a miners' strike, well, this is the one difference. In the movie, it's like kind of in the middle of the miners' strike. In the musical, it's at the very beginning, and they go on strike. So that's the difference, the major plot difference. So we're introduced to this county, in this city, and Billy Elliot is taking boxing, but he's not very good at it, and he doesn't want to do it. And one day after class, he sees the girls doing ballet, and so he, not by his own means, like, he gets roped into this class, so he takes ballet, and he keeps it a secret from his dad. His dad finds out, and doesn't end up well. It ends up with like the iconic angry dance in both the movie and the musical. And then Christmas time happens, and Billy misses an audition, which is where the angry dance also comes from. But Billy misses an audition for the Royal Opera School, the Royal Ballet School, sorry. And his dad sacrifices quite a bit and his brother, in order to be able to afford for him to go audition for the Royal Ballet School, because they find another audition. And then he gets accepted, and you're done. That's the basic plot. So, very simple plot. I didn't want to reveal too much, because if you haven't seen this musical or movie, you should. They're both very good. It made trying to figure out which one I preferred kind of hard, because there were pros and cons to both of them. So we're going to start with the movie. So the movie, pros. It has a more serious tone to it. There's not a lot of jokes. And I have this down as it's also kind of a con, which I will address in a bit. But it's more serious, so you get a harsher sense of what the reality is, which the musical kind of glazes over, which it's a musical, it's supposed to. And movies oftentimes get to do that. And when I put my Newsies video up, I'll explain that even though the Newsies 1992 movie is a musical, you see more of a harsher reality than what you see in the musical. So, going off of that, you get to see, I'm gonna look over here because my computer's over here. You get to see quite a bit of Billy's home life, which you get like touches of in the musical, but not to the extent that is in the movie. However, this is kind of negated by the fact that they're not fully fleshed out ever, in my opinion. So yeah. Movie pros. So Billy and Debbie is the daughter of Billy's dance teacher in his city. Their relationship in the movie is actually, I think, better portrayed, but it also kind of just like teeters out at the end, which like there's nothing ending to it. Like it's like half there, which is kind of sad because she's a funny character. I love, like, the one transition I really love in this movie is from the angry dance to Christmas time. I thought that was very cleverly done, because it just was. Because in the musical, that transition happens over intermission, but in the movie, it's a very, very well done cut. So yeah. The ending. This is where Matthew Bourne Swan Lake comes in, and why I mentioned it, and why you need to go watch it, because it is very symbolic of Billy's transformation and becoming a ballet dancer. Let's go watch Matthew Bourne Swan Lake. But the ending of the movie has Matthew Bourne Swan Lake in it, or it has the Swan's first like official entrance. If you've seen the musical, or if you've seen Matthew Bourne Swan Lake, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I love that ending, but I also don't, which I'll talk about in a bit. But yeah, the Swan Lake part I absolutely love, because I love it. And so this is where I talk about the irony of Billy playing the Swan instead of the Prince, because the Prince would actually be more applicable to Billy's story, in my opinion. But the Swan is the famous character. The Swan in the movie is the one who he asks about, which I actually really like, because it brings in the Swan Lake connection for Billy, which the musical doesn't really have. Even though the Swan Lake music plays throughout the musical and the movie. But in the movie, you have this ending scene, and you have him talking about Swan Lake early on. So, yeah, but the Swan Lake story from Matthew Bourne's perspective isn't the Swan's story. It is the Prince's story and his ability to overcome or not overcome something. And he falls in love with the Swan. And the party scene. Oh, when Matthew Bourne's Swan becomes Odalie, whatever the name is. I would say Odile. It's not that, it's Odalie. But when, that is some scene of some sexual tension. I don't know if you could hear me say that, but sexual tension, and it's great. Okay. Anyways, so the other thing I really like is in the movie, there's a piano, like very prevalent in the Elliot home, and Billy plays it, and there's this motif that reminds him of his mother, because Billy's mom is dead, by the way. Spoilers. And one of the most heartbreaking scenes is at Christmas. They have to break the piano for firewood, because they're poor. So that I love that symbolism. Okay, I just love it. Movie, because it also is very symbolic of Billy's relationship with his father at the time. So moving on. Some of the transitions in the movie, not so great. Like, there's just some poor directorial choices, is the best way I can put it. The movie looks like it was shot in 1992 instead of 2000, which I know that's like not even 10 years apart, but it looks dated, and not in a good way. And not because of costuming or anything. Billy and Michael's friendship is very like flat. In the musical, you get a full friendship of these boys, but in the movie, it's very, very boring, and it makes me like wish they did more and they did better with Michael's character, because I think they didn't try hard enough in the movie. And like a lot of the same scenes are still there, but it's still, Michael isn't the same Michael from the musical, and I think that's a bit down because they're both too shy, whereas in the musical, one is shy, one is outgoing, and that is a great balance between the two. But in the movie, they're both shy, so it's just like, it leaves you wanting more from their friendship, relationship, whatever you want to call it. So yeah. And I've already mentioned the Billy and Debbie relationship teetering out. It's left underdeveloped. Like, they spend time developing it, and then they just kind of just leave it there. And there's just a lot that they didn't complete, in my opinion. There's not really any comedy in the movie, which would be really helpful to like break up a lot of the serious moments, because the movie is very serious, because you do get to see the reality of what's going on, but there's no way to break that up with how the movie is done. And the only comedic moments that there are kind of forced and not that well interlaced into it, whereas with the musical you see that a lot more. Like, the comedy is interlaced from the beginning, so you get the kind of campiness of it, but there's nothing there in the movie. I'm making sure I hit everybody. So my next point is, as much as I think Jamie Bell acted the part really well, and I know he danced since he was like 6 and he was like 12 when the movie was made initially or whatever. I don't think he danced it that well. And I know that I think the Billies are better in the musical, flat out. One of my main issues with Jamie's Billy is you don't see him progress at all from being a bad dancer to being even a slightly good dancer. In the musical you do, but in this you don't. Like, his final audition is just a bit of a mess, and you don't get the electricity number, which is my next con. You don't get electricity to have him get that second chance at dancing. Speaking of electricity, the song isn't in the movie, which means the song comes from the movie Billy's speech, which is a great speech. It's delivered as well as it could be, but it lacks the punch of the musical, because the musical expands a bit on some of the concepts, and then he gets to dance, which you don't see in the movie, and it needs to be there. It's very awkward in the movie. While I love the ending of the movie, this is my next point, because it is a great ending. I love the Swan Lake thing. I love seeing Billy leave and seeing him connect with his family. I don't think it weighs on the heaviness of the miners having to go back to work, which the musical does in such a chilling way. It gave me goosebumps when I watched it. Moving on, Angry Dance is really bad. That's all I can say. It's more of like a tantrum dance rather than an angry dance, and I will get more into this when I talk about the actual musical. But yeah, the Angry Dance is not great. So because it's a movie and not a musical, a lot of the moments in the musical that are given more impact by being a musical number are not there, so they lose that impact. So yeah, that's my reaction. And last, I wish we saw more than one scene of Billy seeing his mom. In the musical, we see her like twice, 3 times tops. In the movie, you see her once, and it's kind of jarring because you're like, what's going on? You don't expect it, but in the musical, because they set it up so early on, it's not as jarring. So yeah. So moving on to the musical now. Musical pros, the dancing. I love the dancing so much. Oh, one thing, movie pro. The dancing, like the girls in the dance class can actually dance well, so I'll get to that when I talk about musical cons. So musical pros, there's so much dancing, and because it's a musical, and I felt like the movie, being about a dancer, it lacked dancing. Like, the movie dragged on, guys. Like, it's a good movie, but it was slow moving, and the musical doesn't feel like that at all, partly because of the music and dancing. So going off of the music adds so much to the story. Like, one of my favorite songs is the opening number of the second act, which is Merry Christmas, Maggie Thatcher, which is absolutely freaking hilarious, and it is such a bop. Is that even the correct term anymore? Is that what cool kids are using these days? I don't know, but it is so funny. And like, it's just such a great number to just like bang your head to a little bit. It's so good. And that whole aspect, that whole Christmas aspect and the community aspect is missing from the movie. And just having something like that, because you get to see a little bit of the play that they do, because it is a play. It's a play within a play. You get to see a little bit of it, but not as much as you do in the musical, and it's such a shame. One thing I like about the musical is you get to see the heavy impact of the strike on the kids, and you get to see it through a gorgeously choreographed number called Solidarity, which is probably my favorite number in the whole show. You have the miners, the police officers, and the dance class working together, and this works. They choreograph it in a way that it is a visual montage. You thought you could never see a montage in musical theater to show not only the passing of time, but the conflicts between three groups of people and how it affects these three groups of people. Watch Billy Elliot. Like, it is literally like watching a movie montage the way they do it. It is so creative and so good, and you get to see how the strike impacts the kids, which the movie completely ignores. Like, the only kid that really matters in the movie is Billy, which is kind of sad because there's such a community in this town that the musical really enforces, which is why some moments in the musical are so much better than in the movie. But yeah, and so talked about that. Sorry, I'm like looking at my notes. The relationship with Michael is better in the musical, flat out. I think the way that they characterize Michael in the musical is a better match for Billy, because Billy is a shy kid. He doesn't want to punch anybody, whatever. Michael in the movie is very shy. Michael in the musical is very outgoing and like literally doesn't care about people's thoughts, where in the movie he does, which I can kind of chalk it up to the actor maybe being a bit nervous about playing Michael, because it can be a bit nerve-wracking if you are not gay yourself and having to play someone gay. You want to do it right, you know? So it can be kind of nerve-wracking, especially when you're 12. But the boys in the musical just do it better. And I think they have it's just a better Michael. It's a better friendship, and you get to really see that friendship. Like, it looks like the boys are actually friends, where in the movie you only get like a small sense of that, which is kind of sad. So moving on, electricity. I've already mentioned in the movie how that number isn't there and why it adds so much to that moment in the movie and the musical. So I'm not going to expand on it too much, but it's better in the musical. The comedy, because you get the campy comedy at the very beginning and it's well placed throughout, it doesn't seem as forced, and it lightens the mood of the musical, because if this comedy wasn't in the musical, we would have a musical that is akin to Les Mis in terms of like seriousness. One of my favorite comedy bits is the tape winding at the audition, which just goes to show why Billy needed like this second chance to dance. In the musical, Billy has a better connection with his grandma. It like the movie, there's a lot of the relationships begin really well and start off building really well, but then they never go anywhere. That's not necessarily the case in the musical. There are some relationships that suffer and some that aren't built as well, but for the overall thing, you get more relationships that have a better structure in the musical than in the movie, and Billy's grandma is one of them. Transitions are better in the musical, in my opinion, completely. I mean, like, Solidarity alone should explain that. Like, the choreography in this show is amazing. The angry dance. In the musical, the angry dance is amazing, and it happens at the same point in both. But the angry dance in the musical is just pure anger. And I've seen a lot of angry dances on the YouTube. The best one I have seen, and the only one that truly gets the anger and isn't just like more of an upset Billy, is Tom Holland. And this isn't just because I love Tom Holland and I love his Spider-Man. His Billy in that moment is one of the most well-acted Billies, and I have seen multiple Billies because I fell in the YouTube hole, alright? So, his angry dance, if you can find it on YouTube, is absolutely brilliant. And if you've read his book, his dad's book, Eclipse, Tom Holland's dad's book, Eclipse, you would know how hard that is, how hard the dance is on the body. But like, even just looking at it, if you know anything about dance, you know that it's not an easy dance to do. But Tom Holland puts so much into it, and I love the filmed live version of it that they have on Amazon. However, the angry dance kind of peters out. Like, most of them kind of peter out because they lose the stamina and energy, obviously. I'm not gonna like fault them on that, but a lot of them don't, like, what Tom does differently and why his is so much better in my opinion is they yell a lot at the beginning. Tom continues that throughout, and that no other Billy I've seen really does that. The closest I've seen is Billy, who was played by a guy named Trent. I forgot his last name, but he was one of the original Broadway Billies. He's the one that performed at the Tonys, so you can probably watch his performance at the Tonys on YouTube from the Tonys. So that's my looking at it, is it has to be well acted, and this actually goes into a point that I will talk about later. Another pro, you get to see Billy physically transform into a better dancer. You don't get that in the movie. And last, a thing that I liked, and it might just be a live recording thing, but the older Billy actor in the musical is also one of the people in the ballet studio when Billy goes to audition. And in the live action filmed version, they like look at each other like they know each other, which I thought was such a good moment. And I don't know if it's just for that or not, but I loved that little moment. Right, musical cons. You don't get to, like I talked about the family connections, you don't get to see it as much, but what's there, I think, in a way is stronger than what's in the movie, because in the movie, there's like strong beginnings and strong endings for different characters. Like the ending with Billy and his dad is way stronger than the beginning. Like it's all over the place in the movie, but in the musical, at least you have like the same lacking in all the categories. So yeah, the Dream Ballet. I love the Dream Ballet. I want that to be clear. It is a gorgeous piece of artistry and dance. However, we never get to see Billy's connection with Swan Lake, which is the music that plays during the Dream Ballet. In the movie, he talks to his dance teacher, Mrs. Wilkinson, about Swan Lake and asks her about the story. So we get that connection. We don't get a Dream Ballet in the movie, but we do get Matthew Bourne's Swan Lake at the end, so I'm okay with that. But the Dream Ballet, you don't get Billy's connection with Swan Lake, so having the Swan Lake music there is kind of awkward and kind of misplaced in my opinion. It also takes place like in the middle of Act 2, which is really nice because I like how it's done here better than in the movie, because here Billy's doing this dancing and then ends in front of his dad. In the movie, Billy is playing with Michael and ends in front of his dad and like dances to act out or whatever. And honestly, I think it's done better in the musical, but still it's a bit awkward. So we're gonna talk about the angry dance, because while I said it was a pro, here's why it's a con. Depending on the Billy you get, you could have a lackluster performance, because like I said, because you could have one of 3 or 4 Billies. You don't know what kind of performance you're going to get, because the Billies typically fall into 3 categories. They typically favor ballet, they typically favor tap, or they typically favor tumbling. And the Billies that favor tap and tumbling, I personally have noticed, tend to be better actors than the ones that favor ballet, which is kind of ironic, because ballet you have to be able to emote. Otherwise, the ballet doesn't come across very well. So, and you can tell, and I'll tell you this, Tom Holland favored tumbling when he was a Billy. So, his acting was amazing. So I'm going to talk more about how, because you get different child actors each night, you may get a different performance, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, like, Liam Maurer is a very talented singer. However, I've seen some of his performances, and there's like no emotion behind his voice. He's just like kind of singing it because he cares more about the dance, because he's a ballet. Gotta love dogs. Because he's more of a ballet favoring Billy. So, yeah. And like, the thing is, when you compare that, because the one I saw was on live TV, and comparing that with another Billy whose name was Fox, who danced with who was Billy at the same time as Tom Holland. Fox's is well acted. He's a favor for ballet, because what I've noticed is that I love dogs. Is that when a Billy, and when they do like live TV performances, the Billy that sings Electricity is usually the one that favors dance, or that favors ballet. So, sorry about all the background noise, guys. So yeah, you might not get the same kind of show. Some relationships in the musical are sacrificed for others. Like, we get a really good relationship with Mrs. Wilkinson, stronger than in the movie in my opinion, but we don't really get that with every other character, which is kind of sad. So many freaking noises, I'm so mad. So overall, I love both. I really do. Like, this was a hard decision to make, and I think you can probably figure out which one I'm going to say is my favorite. Music in the show is better, like, just in general. I didn't like the music choices. I didn't think they always necessarily fit in the movie. I love that the motif that plays for Billy's mom in the movie is actually carried out in the musical. I'm pretty sure it is. I'm not a music expert, so don't take my word for that, but I'm pretty sure it is, which I thought was really touching, and it showed that Elton John really did his homework, because there's like 3 songs that are total, like, pulled straight from the movie with like words and all. And that, like, he took moments from the movie, took the words, and made them into a song, which is really cool. I think the Billies in the musical are overall a lot better. They have to be like true triple threats. You get to see more of their dancing. You get to see them become better dancers as Billy throughout the show, which takes a lot of acting, and I thought I would see that in the movie, but I was kind of disappointed that we didn't get to see that. But that's not a slight to Jamie's performance at all, because I thought he did great. So which is better? The musical. Yes, it's the first one I saw. We're not going to comment on the apparent pattern that might be showing up if I like the one that I saw first. We're going to ignore that, because that doesn't mean anything, because I think my reasoning negates that. We're also going to ignore that I prefer the Broadway versions, because my next video may also negate that pattern. More noises. Love it. Sorry, guys. So, I like the movie, but the musical allows for a lot more emotion to be evoked from everybody on stage, which the movie does lack, unfortunately. I love the transitions in the musical. Like I said, Solidarity is such a brilliantly choreographed number. movie just like kind of suffers with some of the interpersonal relationships. It doesn't make Billy seem like a kid. It makes him seem more like an archetype or something, which is sad. I love that the musical takes things from the movie and intertwines it, like I said. The musical number Boogie, I don't know the actual title of it, is taken from the movie. The letter is like word for word taken from the movie, but added with Elton's music genius. And then Electricity, also taken from the movie with a bit of added lyrics and Elton's musical genius. So like, it's really well done like that. And it makes it so that not one is like, so it makes it very obvious that the musical is based on the movie. And it makes it so like, if you have seen one or the other, you know, you like have the same story. It's not a different story. They didn't change like anything. The only thing they really changed plot-wise, like I said, was when the miners' strike began, which I really appreciate. Like, not changing one thing from the other makes the decision for me to like one over the other so much harder. Merry Christmas Maggie Thatcher was missing in the movie, and I'm sad because it is such a good song. It is so funny. And it shows the community of the town, which we don't really get to see at all. Like, the community aspect of the town and how everybody interacts with each other is missing from the movie. It's a very empty movie, if that makes sense. So yeah, I love them both equally, but I think the musical just outweighs it just a little bit for a very few things. So that's it for the video. I know this one wasn't as polarizing as Cats. I didn't get as angry as I did in Cats. Don't worry, if you want to see me get angry about a musical, wait for my next musical video. But even though it wasn't as polarizing, I still was able to say that the Broadway/West End version is clearly better than the musical. So I hope you all have a wonderful day, week, night, month, year, whenever you're watching this, and I will see you later. Bye!